Hey peeps, welcome to the top 5 lists. This is the first one recorded because many of you voted on Instagram for this to be the first video that's recorded in the top 5 favorites for 2024. We are starting off with my favorite Oracle decks for my personal practice. You will see that there is another top 5 Oracle decks list, and that covers professional practice. So that covers work as a tarot reader and priestess, decks that I used the most in 2024 and that have ended up being my favorites. But for this video, we are talking about my favorite decks for my personal practice in 2024. I've been doing so many year ahead readings that I almost said 2025 there. But no, these are decks that I have used the most in my personal practice as I've moved throughout the calendar year of 2024, which some of you know has been a very intense year for me personally. A lot of lessons, a lot of growth. And so my card practice was really, really important for me in staying as grounded as possible and as aware as possible of my own shadow work and patterns and layers that I was ready to shed, and understanding and presence for myself that I was ready to embrace in 2024. So I'm going to start with a few honorable mention because I can't just do 5, guys. It's really difficult to just do 5. So my honorable mention here is going to be the Loputyn Oracle and Angelarium Oracle of the Fallen. I really love both of these decks, and it was really hard to leave them off of my top 5. But the other decks on the list beat them out just a little bit for the most use. These 2 decks have very specific purposes in my collection. Again, this is the Loputyn Oracle. This is Angelarium Oracle of the Fallen by Pete Moorbacher. Here is an image from this deck. And here is an image from Loputyn. Both of these decks are so powerful for coming to understand yourself, your path, and your purpose at a deeper level. And neither of these decks pull any punches. They're not sweet talkers. They're going to give it to you straight. They're going to tell you the truth. And they're going to hold you to what you are capable of achieving as a practitioner on your spiritual journey. And I definitely use these for deep personal work and for daily draws. I don't really use either of these decks as clarifying decks. They just don't serve that purpose for me. They're much more meant to be used as single card draws or for very specific spreads I've created in order to connect and understand my guides, my deity, my path, or aspects of my own journey, as I said, at a deeper level. So those 2 decks are honorable mention. That being said, we're going to get into the top 5. I have my list over here so I stay on task. Number 5 is the Holler Moon Mountain Oracle. This deck I purchased around midsummer of 2024, and you know, some decks you just feel connected to. And this is one of those decks for me. It's very representative of my connection with the land. And I will put the link to the artist and creatrix's Etsy shop down below. This is an independently produced deck. It features black and white photography, although I do have a little bit of an expansion pack that has some color imagery. But this is a beautiful deck. Now, this deck I do use as a clarifier to my personal tarot spreads as well as with clients. But I've really enjoyed this one personally to tap into my connection with the land, with the old ones, with the ancestors, with the element of earth, and to walk in a very, some people might call it a folk magic way. It's a really, really beautiful deck for that. It's a deck of the people, if you will. It's a deck of daily life. If you are a witch, it's so indicative of daily practice to me. And so I love it to feel a sense of confirmation, connection, and support on my path. And it's not a deck that is preaching above you or down to you. It's very much in the trenches with you. And that's why I really, really love this deck. It's very special. It's very unique. And it is number 5 on my list. That is the Holler Moon Mountain Oracle. If you do choose to invest in the deck, Many of us know that the unboxing experience, the way that the artist and creatrix crafts the box, the wrapping, and the beautiful accoutrement that she feels called intuitively to provide for you, make a huge part of how impactful your relationship with the deck is to become. I feel like it's very indicative of the path you're going to walk with the deck. And for me, how this deck was wrapped when I received my purchase was very much like something my great grandmother would have made. And that's how I feel. It's very much roots and ancestors and the land and voices of the old ones. So I love that deck a great deal. Next on the list, this deck is currently out of print. I know, you guys are gonna get upset at me. Everybody gets all worked up because you can't buy it right now. I am sure that Syrian is well aware of how many people want to purchase this deck. I don't see how he couldn't be at this point. I love this deck so much. I did actually purchase an additional copy. I was gifted this deck by Syrian, but I actually purchased a second copy because I knew it was going to go out of print, and I really, really love this deck. This is the Haunted Manor Oracle. I like this deck for shadow work and also for clarification of tarot spreads. It works really well for both of these purposes, excuse me. It's also aesthetically very much in alignment with my I don't know, what do we call that? My look, my vibe, my feel. It's very much in alignment with that. And so I just have a whole package experience with this deck. I think because I love how this deck feels, I love how it looks, I'm much more open to it kind of kicking me in the ass a little bit. And the Haunted Manor Oracle does really like to do that. The guidebook is lovely, but I really work with this deck intuitively, and I just sit with the imagery and I journal off of what comes up from a shadow work perspective or a personal empowerment perspective. And if I'm using the deck as a clarifier to tarot, the keywords are wonderful to prompt your intuition to offer that clarity for either myself or clients, but for this particular list, for myself personally on my path. I really love this deck. This deck is like one of my best friends. We take very good care of each other. She's with me a lot. And this is a very, very, very special deck. So that is the Haunted Manor Oracle by Syrian Shadow. Next, this deck has been on the list for years. This is the Memento Mori Oracle by the same creatrix who made the Antique Anatomy deck. Her name escapes me right now. I will put a link to purchase this deck in the description box down below. I don't know if this is available on Amazon. You may need to purchase it from her website. I believe this was independently created, and I believe it's still available for purchase. This is a power deck for me. I use this for everything. It's always out on my table so I can look at it all the time. I can pick up the deck, I can shuffle the cards, I can feel them in my hands when I want to touch earth, when I want to feel connected to the dead, to the old ones, to the ancestors, when I want to hear the voices of former and past selves, and just when I want to feel heard and seen, when I want to feel witnessed by not only the artwork within this deck, but the energy of this deck. It holds such a reverence for the death cycle of life and the lessons that we learn within that pause, that threshold, that liminal space, if you will. And this deck is just so unique for that. And while you can use it as a Lenormand, you can use it as an Oracle deck, I really developed my own language with this deck, and so I use it totally intuitively. I don't really reference the guidebook, and I've built my own language with her. I have my own journal dedicated to her, and this is my favorite card backing probably of all time, although I don't know, Haunted Manor Oracle is pretty close. I'm not gonna lie. But this is up there. This deck is just really fucking special. It's been on my list every year since I was gifted it. I didn't think Claire Goodchild. That's the artist and creatrix's name, who made this deck. I was gifted this deck at the time by a friend, and I didn't think I needed it because it was popular. I was like, I don't know. I don't do popular. I like those decks you find on the off the beaten path, much like myself. But I was wrong. She was right. This deck is amazing, and she is a best friend for me as well. The Momento Mori Oracle. Best friend, not only for shadow work though. Actually, I really don't work with Memento for shadow work. I work with Memento Mori more for witnessing and touching ground, but also tapping into internal compass. And I do work with her, as I said, very intuitively. Okay, next on the list, this deck is so special. I was gifted this deck as well. I never would have thought that I would fall in love with this deck as much as I have, but since the day that I opened her up, I knew she was a magical, magical deck for me as a witch and a priestess. And so this deck is on multiple lists for 2024. It is the Death Doula Oracle. It is an independently created deck, and it's meant to assist you through times of transition, transformation, endings, and beginnings. And it is very much a supportive elemental being. This deck is an elemental being for me. It's very connected to nature. It's very connected to, I would say to you, the grandmothers who are representative of the grandmothers within the medicine wheel from a Native American shamanic perspective, but also my son and I use that verbiage to describe the crone energies within our family lines that have passed, but also the crone energies that we feel protect us in our journey together. And many of you know we thank the grandmothers all the time, and I do feel that their voices live quite potently in the Death Doula Oracle. It is a quiet powerhouse, and I assure you, if you give yourself time to work ritual with this deck, to work magic with this deck, to work with this deck in order to understand yourself, you will not regret having this as part of your spiritual toolkit. It is such a powerful, powerful deck. I am so in love with this oracle deck. It is so profound. It's such a spiritual truth teller, but it's also very nurturing of the physical. So it's there for your body as well. It's not just about getting out and up into the ethers. It's about being in here and experiencing the ethers here as well. And I use this deck primarily for deep personal work and presence. So I do a lot of daily draws or single to 3 card spreads when I'm attempting to understand something in my own personal experience, or to understand myself, or to clarify a message or a conversation or communication with deity or guides. But I do also use this deck a lot in client readings. And I will also use this to clarify tarot. She has no problem going there, but she's much happier in a space of central and core within a reading, a spread, or a meditative session for sure. But this is the Death Doula Oracle. It is so, it's number 2 on the list. I mean, it's amazing. The creator of this deck, they're really tapped into something very special. So it's one of those decks that I don't know if I would have purchased it. So I'm very thankful it was gifted to me, and I'm very, very honored to work with it as a priestess, but also to work with it for myself too. To work with this deck is like giving a gift to myself, a real gift of presence, which is not a small thing, especially these days. So number 1 on the list for 2024 in my personal practice is the Lost Oracle by Fiona Horn. Yes, as you'll see, Magic of You Oracle isn't on my personal practice list this year. I just wasn't called to work with that deck personally as much as the Lost Oracle, and the Lost Oracle is number 1 for me. This was gifted to me by a lovely viewer and sister, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I was so busy in my life when this deck came out that if she and a few other wonderful tarot sisters had not let me know about this deck, I probably would have missed its presence, and that would have been a travesty for me, because I feel like if you identify as a witch who practices magic of the land, who works with the old ones, who works elementally, who's very connected to the forest, to the ocean, to the mountains, to these tangible nature power places, and to the ley lines as a witch, this is a deck for you. It's just the combination of the illustrations and the guidebook and the feel of this deck, it just feels lived in, it feels real, and it does feel a little bit dirty in the best way possible. It's got some dirt on it. This deck's been out in the backyard, you know, it has that feeling. And it speaks all the time. I leave it out on my kitchen table when I'm not in the middle of working with it, either for myself or in a client reading, because I can hear her a lot. And I'll often feel called to just go over and pull a card and talk to the old ones and the elements, the stone people, the tree beings through this deck. And you know, more and more as I get older, I really resonate so with this image of the crone living deep within the forest, off the beaten path, and her community finds her at the right times. But she's very much a part of her land, and the land claims her in that same way. And this deck just feels like that to me. It doesn't require you to have trained under someone or to have a fancy title. If you just know that you're a witch, if you know that that's a part of you, if you feel a sense of reverence and aliveness and relationship to nature, to the elements, if you feel a mystery and magic within yourself, like, this deck is going to be potent to work with. And I use this every day as a daily draw. I have since I was gifted this deck. And I'm still using it as a daily draw deck months later. It's just so freaking beautiful. It's so fucking special. And I believe that I had just moved into our new apartment when this deck first came. And so I also have an association of this new fresh space, which is very much like, I mean this in the best way possible, it's like being a hobbit living here. Like, I just love the warmth in the tones of the wood here. And it's a ground level apartment, so I just feel like very held by the land. Like, I'm a little hobbit hiding away, eating my second breakfast, you know, with the sun warming my face. This deck also gives me that feeling too, and I really equate that with just the joy for Vincent and I when we first got the okay that yes, we were going to get to live here. We loved the way that this space feels, and we love the land here. It's so alive, it's so old, and it has so many voices within it. And this deck is a wonderful channel for that. So if you're looking to channel the land where you live, you might find that the Lost Oracle is wonderful for that as well. Also, I mean, come on, the artwork is just so witchy. If you're a hedge witch, if you like folk magic, if you work with dirt in your magical practice, if you aren't afraid to get your hands dirty in your magical practice, if you're not a love and light witch, if you're a witch who embraces the shadow and death energy as well as rebirth energy, then the Lost Oracle is a deck for you. So you made it, guys. This is my top 5 for personal practice. In 2024, there will of course be a top 5 for tarot in both genres here, personal practice and professional practice. Keep your eye out for the top 5 oracle decks that I used in my professional practice as well. I've got lots of videos coming to the channel over the next few weeks to celebrate the end of the calendar year and to kind of prepare us to step through over that threshold into the energy of the new in January of 2025. I am sending you guys, as always, oceans of love. I will, of course, see you in the next video. Take care.